Victorian health authorities are still racing to pinpoint the source of a deadly Legionnaires outbreak as the Melbourne cluster claims a second life. Reporter Stephanie Ferrier joins us now from Melbourne. Steph, what are health officials saying about how this investigation is progressing?
Good morning, Gemma. We've heard from Dr Claire Looker, who is Victoria's Chief Health Officer, and she has revealed that 54 out of the around 100 cooling towers in Derrimut and Laverton North have been tested and disinfected so far. Now, this is a largely industrial area. It's in Melbourne's western suburbs, and investigators have been able to narrow down their investigations to this particular area. So they believe that this is where the outbreak could have originated from. They are also asking for the latest test results from around 1,000 cooling towers right across Melbourne. But Dr Looker says that it's very possible that this was a colonisation of the Legionella bacterium in one of these cooling towers in Melbourne's west that's now subsequently been cleared. And that's backed up also by epidemiologists. We've heard from Professor Catherine Bennett from Deakin University, and she says that obviously the modus operandi of these investigators is to try and disinfect straight away and then try to find the cause a little bit later on, just to make sure that the situation is made safe as soon as possible. So she says, given that this could have already happened and we're talking about a transient source, it is possible that we will never actually know which particular cooling tower was to blame. We do know, though, that this outbreak now encompasses some 77 people, with a further 7 suspected cases, and 75 of those have required hospitalisation. Sadly, also, we now know that a second person has died from Legionnaire's disease. That's a man aged in his 60s, and this follows the death of a woman aged in her 90s earlier. However, Dr Claire Looker does say that it is promising that at least what we are seeing is a slowing of the number of positive cases just recently. So that gives them hope that they might be seeing the tail of this outbreak. However, she says it's still really important that anybody who has actually been to visit Melbourne since mid-July and shows symptoms that are consistent with Legionnaire's disease, so that's having a chest infection or suffering from flu-like symptoms of fever and chills, headache, cough, and even muscular aches, goes along and gets them checked out by the GP just to discount the possibility of Legionnaire's disease as a possible situation that they might have. And of course, this is the biggest outbreak that Australia has seen since the Melbourne Aquarium outbreak back in 2000, and that's when there were 125 cases and 4 deaths, Gemma.
Steph Ferrier in Melbourne, thank you. Commuters in Sydney are being warned to plan ahead today with major changes to bus routes. This comes after the forced delay of the opening of the new Metro train line. Reporter Charlie Mills is in Sydney for us. Charlie, what's the situation there this morning?
Well, Sydney-siders are being told to expect a bit of upheaval on their morning commute today, as it is the first work day featuring these new bus routes amid some of those concerns about the future of the planned Metro line between Sydenham and Chatswood. Bus authorities have forged ahead with these new changes, scrapping 5 routes, changing 2 and increasing the frequency of others. They were designed to funnel people towards that new Metro line. However, those changes have been brought in despite the Metro line not opening as it was scheduled to yesterday. Now, transport workers are in place right across the network today in order to help people get accustomed to those changes. And from what we've heard so far, thankfully it has been fairly smooth, with people able to get on their buses and get to work. But people planning on using the system all throughout today and throughout the rest of this week, they're being warned, plan ahead, have a look at those timetables and make sure you know when your bus is leaving.
And Charlie, what is the current status of the planned Metro line?
Well, as we know, that line was supposed to open yesterday, but it was delayed after the National Rail Safety Regulator didn't tick off in time due to some incomplete safety checks. There was also a concern that was raised late last week when a fire and emergency service worker was received a minor electrical shock while doing an emergency drill on the new line. A new opening date for the line isn't yet set, but authorities have told the ABC that they expect those final safety checks to come within the next few days, and they will be setting a timeline after that.
Charlie Mills in Sydney, thank you. The search for a man missing in a far north Queensland river is continuing this morning, with police holding grave fears that he has been taken by a crocodile. The 40-year-old tourist from New South Wales was fishing with his family on the banks of the Annan River near Cooktown on Saturday afternoon when he fell into the river. Reporter Christopher Tester is in Cairns and joins us now live. Christopher, how long has the search been going for and who is involved in it?
Yeah, good morning. The search began very shortly after he was seen to fall into the river just south of Cooktown on Saturday afternoon. Emergency services were called about 2:30 and they began searching that afternoon. It's still continuing today and has continued overnight. It's got local members of police and SES from Cooktown, but also specialist units. Police and wildlife officers from Cairns have travelled north to help with the search. Cooktown's about 4 hours north of Cairns in far north Queensland, and the searchers had to pause a couple of times because the river is affected by tidal systems and weather events, but other than that it has continued and it looks like continuing into a third day today.
And what do we know about the location where this man was reportedly taken?
The location's known as Crocodile Bend, and it's got that name because there is a resident large saltwater crocodile that the locals are quite fond of, and it's a spot that people in Cooktown recommend that you can go and spot a croc if you're travelling through the area. What it's not recommended for is as a place to fish, which is what police say the man was doing when he fell into the river. Some local fishers have described it to me as having a very steep drop-off of several metres. You're in grass and then there is a sudden drop to the water, and they say it would be very hard to get back up if you did fall into the water. It's just a nondescript location off the Mulligan Highway, just a few kilometres south of town. Not necessarily a spot that would be recommended for all tourists travelling through the area, but a very remote location in far north Queensland.